It's a Conspiracy is a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network. For other fun programming, please check out albertapodcastnetwork.com, where you can find shows like Speaking Municipally.
It's Paradox.
There we go. Now that way I won't forget.
All right. Episode 2, The Man Who Fell to Earth. Welcome back, everyone, to It's a Conspiracy. This is the podcast where we lay out the beliefs behind selected conspiracy theories, alternative accounts, legends, myths, and more. I'm your host, Andrew, and I do not claim to be an expert on anything we're going to discuss today, and will probably be wrong about everything as usual, because it's actually perfect weather for this warm-blooded, ginger pasty Scotsman. It's like +9 outside. It's overcast. I've got a sweater on. No more of this tap-saff business. It's just
suntanning is basically what he's trying to tell you guys.
Tap-saff?
Tap-saff. So in Scotland, if it's hot, they say it's tap-saff, which means like tops off.
I get it.
Which is not the nicest image. Like, I'm not trying to shame anybody, but like, you know, you get a lot of sunburned, sensitive
Scottish
places
people.
on your bodies. Yeah.
It's basically sun's out,
It's the
guns out.
sun. Yeah. Every time I hear that tap-saff, I just
Tap-saff.
laugh. Tap-saff.
Sun's out, guns out.
And also, don't call Scottish people Scotch. I heard somebody say that the other day. They're like, oh, those Scotches. I'm like, what are you talking about? Are you talking about whiskeys? Like, don't refer to people. Anyway, that's a whole other
That's
thing.
neither
But
here
if they
nor
called
there.
them, if they called them Scots, they'd probably be talking about all your entire family.
Yeah, well, Scots is fine. Just one T is the general, and two T, is in particular to my family, as it were. When you have the most generic name ever, then that does tend to happen.
Great Scott!
Yeah. Now, as always, if you'd like to see where we dug up whatever syringes full of strange and delicious elixirs we're about to poke ourselves with, then please check out the resources in the episode description.
Holy shit.
I think you're
Charlie-
taking it wrong.
Charlie, our kindly village country doctor, he has a pleasing bedside manner, and he will numb you in all the right places. You should check out his wares in the episode description. That's a weird roundabout way of, yeah. Go look at the links in the episode description.
It's going to touch you in ways that you'll never even know.
We are a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown, community supported. Yay team, yay friends, yay squad. You can check us out at itsconspiracypodcast.com. Our Twitter at Is It a Conspiracy? That's run by the social media influencer Irish Madman. And we've had this long running gag for a while. His name is we usually end up bleeping that out, so that's an example of how that comes. I'll bleep it out. It's all right, though. It's okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
shit. I
Yeah.
thought we were actually going to reveal who he
No,
was.
I'm not going to reveal his name. I'm just saying it now because then we can
man.
have a good chance to. We haven't done a good bleep in a long time. We haven't bleeped in a while, Greg.
We can bleep every episode if you really
Oh,
wanted to.
I'm down with a little more bleeping in my life. Our Facebook group, our Instagram, It's a Conspiracy Podcast. That's run by Greg. And our email and our Patreon page, patreon.com/
It's a conspiracy.
Charlie on the frightening voice modulator. Is that actually you talking?
Yeah.
And you just change your voice with electrical means?
Yeah, I mean, like, hold on. I'll just say the same thing, but slightly different.
Okay.
It's a conspiracy.
Ooh.
That one's a little more
I like that one
jovial.
better.
Yeah. You kind of got like a, what's his name? The guy from Chef. The guy from Chef.
The guy
John Favreau.
from Chef.
The guy from the guy from South Park. What's the guy's name that I think he passed away
Isaac
now?
Hayes.
Isaac Hayes,
yeah.
thank you. That has like an Isaac Hayes vibe to
The
it.
guy from Chef. That was a chef.
So, righty then, joining the online distance communication time today is Gorgeous Greg and Charming Charlie. These deactivated mitochondrias will interject as they see fit, and I'm very appreciative of their digital company. I feel safe and secure. Now, Charlie, with a yes or a no, can you tell me if you've heard of either of these theories? Okay, number 1, the first vaccine.
No.
Okay. Number 2, Moments of Greg with Greg.
Oh, no.
And number 3, the Vrill Society.
I don't know what that is. No.
Subject number 1, the first vaccine. I thought we'd start off our fourth season here with a nice, light, totally controversy-free subject to get into the swing of things here. Kind of, just snappy and frothy and fun. So vaccines, right? Everybody's on board with vaccines. Hey, guys, come on, right? Yeah, hey, we're all good to go. So the first vaccine is a really interesting story. First of all, it wasn't really a vaccine as we know it, and the guy credited for it wasn't really the inventor. But let's not get the bicycle in front of the clown or ahead of ourselves. If you will indulge me here, let's fire up the Wayback Machine all the way to the 18th century. A horrible... Oh, that's right. If you got your Wayback Machine,
the Wayback Machine.
Oh, Charlie, can we hop into the seat of the Wayback Machine?
Sitting in a field. We went too far.
A field full of smallpox. So a horrible disease called smallpox was ravaging the globe, and science, if you believe in science, wasn't exactly what it is today, so people weren't sure what to do. The symptoms of smallpox were body aches, high fever, sore throat, headaches, difficulty breathing, and funnest of all, a painful, disfiguring rash that would cover your entire body inside and out with painful pustules. That's
So,
not a nice
guys,
word to say.
I think I need to go see a doctor.
Yeah.
Oh man, if you lived, the rash that covered you with the pustules, which is a horrible word to say, would eventually fade, and a number of those suffering from smallpox would actually end up permanently disfigured. So a little example here. Here's someone who, this guy he had smallpox, but this is him in a cured state, but this was what he was left looking like after the disease. Yeah, we'll put this on the Instagram page. Pretty rough, right?
My goodness. Just never mind smallpox. You sure don't want to catch large pox.
Jesus.
Okay, doke. Yeah.
I said if you don't like the look of smallpox, you should check out large pox.
We can edit out the laughing in that joke, right?
Yeah, totally. Mini pox has a bit funner sound to it too. I should be, yeah. All right. Now, at the time, it was expected that approximately 1/3 of adults infected with smallpox would die, and sadly, 8 out of 10 infants who got smallpox would die. So for the first 20 years or so of the 18th century, it is predicted that the disease killed 400,000 people each year just in Europe.
Approximately.
Approximately, that's right.
Oh, boy.
Oh, we're on fire. Someone call the fire brigade. This awful business was also busy being carried all over North and South America and all over around the world by explorers who sometimes were like, hey, just showing up and like finding out what's the globe looks like and learning about new places. And sometimes they were also deliberately infecting populations of indigenous people, sadly. In North America in particular, the disease ravaged entire populations and millions could have died. Nobody really knows what the number is because, by the time the explorers showed up and set up actual colonies, it was like, weren't there a bunch of people here? And they're like, yeah, they all died. So
Yeah, thanks
pretty sad. Yeah, guns, germs, and steel. They say that's what set up the colonies.
Ooh.
There were a number of attempted treatments or cures. Some of these kind of remind me of the, hey, if you're not sure, just take some avocados, buddy. That's what you need. You need some avocados. This included placing people in alternating hot and cold rooms, abstaining from eating melons.
Okay. No melons
Yep.
for you.
Wrapping patients in bright red cloth. Okay. And now I don't want to completely dismiss this last one. It might have a bit of merit. Drinking 12 small bottles of beer every 24 hours.
I'm down with that.
Yeah.
I think we should try it out.
I'll let you guys know tomorrow.
Yeah.
Now, there was a revolutionary approach.
Hold on. Before you do that, aren't you missing one?
I may have been missing one. Was there one that...
Sure. I mean, cocaine.
I'm sure people were also just busy injecting themselves
That
with
was the cure-all, isn't it?
the vials of cocaine. Be like, yep.
Oh man, you've got some ghosts in your blood. You should do some cocaine about that.
Doctor prescribed.
I'm sorry, your thumb hurts when you make coffee. Here's some cocaine.
Make you feel
Right
better.
the thumb. There was a revolutionary approach brewing as well. Edward Jenner, which is a great name, a British doctor, he observed that the dairymaids in the county of Gloucestershire did not seem to catch the horrible affliction. And if they did, they ended up with much milder symptoms and very little disfiguring scars. I can't bring myself to say the word pustules anymore, so I'm just going to say lesions from now on. It's coming up, and I'm like, I can't. Ugh. He inquired, and he was told it was because they had all been exposed to large pox. Oh, I'm sorry. They'd all been exposed to cowpox, which is a disease transferred to humans from repeated contact with cows. Really, cowpox? Like, I hope there's like kitten pox and maybe.
Well, I mean,
pox.
it's right next to chicken pox.
Yeah, exactly.
I think there are, but they're just not called pox.
But is there like gerbil pox or pony pox? Like, what are we doing here?
Guinea pox.
Guinea pox. So that got Jenner thinking, and he came up with an idea that could save millions of lives, he thought. Jenner hypothesized that exposure to cowpox would give immunity to smallpox, and he decided to try it out in what's got to be the most ethically way possible. He collected pus from the lesion of someone suffering from cowpox. He grabbed a local boy, James Phipps, who was 8 years old at the time, and whose parents were completely unaware of what was happening. He scraped the pus from the cowpox lesion into an open cut on the boy's arm. And Jenner told the boy, he's like, come back in a couple days when the symptoms of cowpox start showing up. And when the boy returned, Jenner had a sample of smallpox pus collected from someone who was suffering from smallpox. How gross would it be collecting pus from people? Like, ugh.
Put that on your resume.
I'm a pus collector.
He took his active smallpox collected and scraped it into the open cut on the boy, who, again, his parents did not know that this was going on. Miraculously, the boy did not develop smallpox, and Jenner knew he had, perhaps in a somewhat ethically compromised way, found the solution to this global pandemic. He called it a vaccine after the Latin name of the cowpox virus, which is like vaccina or something like that. And he immediately shared his findings with medical experts, governments, churches, and royalty around the world. For the most part, Jenner refused to be monetarily rewarded for his treatment, and as word spread of the treatment, the results were proven to be very effective. There was, this is going to sound like a commentary on 2021, there was an enormous outcry of my rights, I got rights, and people's rights being violated, and concerns over injecting animal material into bodies, which sounds kind of familiar. But gradually, smallpox was whittled down to the point. Jenner's thing was in the early 1800s, and over 100 years later, 1980, it was globally eradicated except for samples kept securely in labs. Jenner is credited for saving hundreds of millions of billions of Brazilians of lives and is memorialized. Okay, Jenner is memorialized in a number of statues and institutes bearing his name, and is considered by many to be one of the greatest Britons and one of the greatest human beings to have ever lived. For years, there was an assumption that the boy he used as a guinea pig was in fact his own son, but this has been completely disproven, and it is confirmed that Jimmy Phipps, they call me.
Old Jimmy Phippy.
He was a child of a gardener working at the dairy farm in Gloucestershire. So he was like a local kid who just happened to have the bad fortune of walking by when Jenner...
Can you that boy?
You got a moment?
The goose as big as I. So he just grabbed the first kid he saw and stuck cowpox into the kid.
Okay. Yeah. Save it for...
Yeah, both of you were like on the point of giving out your opinions on that.
I know. I'm not. This is for trying to keep the opinions out of this. Here's one of the statues commemorating his achievements. This is in I think it's Kensington Park in London. This is hilarious. Okay, so I'm just gonna we're gonna share
just him giving a disease to a child.
So So here he is here, just
Yo, it
injecting.
totally is. Are you fucking kidding?
So he's holding a young child and injecting him with
man.
something.
Science.
Yeah, he's got a real kind of like Harrison Ford.
I
A
got
New
high
Hope
way
look
before
going
I
on.
did this. I don't know what I'm doing. I just showed up.
This kills me. And when this statue was made, the assumption was that it was his own son. So apparently the memorial on the plaque is like, Jenner bravely injects his own son. What a sacrifice. But it was not his son.
So he was not willing to go that far.
I don't think he had kids, or I'm not exactly sure.
Well, I hope not. If he just run around giving kids diseases.
Now, obviously, his contribution to science is enormous. Like ethically compromised as it was, the contribution to science is gigantic. But a few things have to be pointed out here. So in the early 1700s, there was an African slave named Onesimus who shared the practice of inoculating people with a milder version of smallpox or one of its variants like cowpox. So this guy was a slave. He was brought to Europe, and he's like, what we do is we just get cowpox and then we're fine. Onesimus and a number of others claimed that this approach had been used around Asia and the African continent for centuries, and this was dismissed as a bunch of primitive nonsense at the time by most medical experts. These same medical experts continued wrapping their patients up in red fabrics and applying leeches between beers and sticking cocaine in you whenever your blood was full of ghosts. You know,
But I wish I had more ghosts in my blood.
Real science.
In 1774, another Brit named Benjamin Jesty, what a great name that is, he stumbled onto the cowpox theory. So this was kind of like an urban myth going on for years. Like anyone who was like worked with cows didn't get smallpox. And in the midst of a particularly savage outbreak, Jesty decided to try out this theory to save his family's life. He scratched pus from the lesions on a cow's udder. Like, once again, that's a nasty hobby. Like, take up Lego or something
Hey,
else.
look, man. When I used to just like collect cards and things like that. These guys are collecting pus. Like, I don't know.
Could be the
From
same
lesions. Ugh.
thing. Oh man, but those cards had different effects and different attack abilities.
That's right.
So it's almost like we're playing Magic the Gathering, but with like biogenetics.
You guys and your
Real
Magic
life.
the Gathering. Can we get through one episode without you guys bringing up Magic the Gathering? Honestly.
I think this is the first episode we've ever mentioned Magic the Gathering.
Literally never mentioned it before. Yeah.
And I don't even know if you guys know how to play. Like I could have just made a reference that nobody knows about.
So this guy, he grabbed a bunch of pus from a cow's udder, and then he dried it into a flaky paste, and he and his family inhaled it through the nose.
I was just about to joke that they snorted it, but you're serious.
I don't know if they did like lines on the back of the toilet or whatever, but like they snorted it. So they survived, and they were celebrated as medical miracles. And he's like, well, we just did what we'd heard had worked. One interesting final note, and this is kind of, I think we're going to come back to this later on. It's a really fascinating kind of epilogue to the whole thing. King Charles of Spain, he had lost a number of family members to smallpox and was particularly interested in getting the pandemic under control. He commissioned a fleet called the Balmis expedition to carry the vaccines to the furthest reaches of the Spanish Empire, which at the time included a number of places all over the world, like Asia, North America, South America, the Philippines. This was a massive undertaking that would have taken years, and there was no way of keeping the cowpox lesions active for this amount of time. So the solution was to have a crew of 22 young boys taken from place to place. These children would be kept in a constant state of suffering from cowpox, and they would have their lesions sampled as they landed in different colonies, or they'd be like, here's the boys, go hang out with the village kids, and all the kids would get cowpox because it was extremely contagious. And this time, there wasn't any concern about that pesky parental consent, because the boys, aged 3 to 10, were all orphans. They were placed under the care of Ms. ISABEL ZENDAL. She was the lone female crew member, and she was a single mother, which was extraordinarily controversial at the time. And she actually brought along her own son. So there was 23 boys. There was 22 orphans, and there was her son, who was also used as a cowpox vessel on the mission. Then in 2021, Madrid, right in Spain, they open a brand new public hospital specifically for emergency cases and medical research related to COVID-19. and they named that hospital Hospital Enferma Isabel Zendala in her honor. So that's very cool, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice little epilogue to that. Isn't that a fascinating story though? Traveling all over the world with a bunch of sick kids just giving out diseases.
I mean, but I mean, it's also the basis for the song. The boys are back in town.
Whoa.
The Cowpox boys are back in town. Yeah.
Nope. Can't go there. Sorry, guys. No.
You draw the line at
I
any
draw the
Thin
line
Lizzy.
there, man. You're about to talk some shit about Thin Lizzy, and I just say no.
I'm not talking anything. I love Thin Lizzy.
And a true story. The original name of the band was Thin Izzy for Isabel.
So,
all right, none of you may not know this, and Andrew's about to cut to like commercial or whatever.
No, we'll go
Don't
ahead.
talk shit about Thin Lizzy. That is the greatest band known to human beings.
Greg,
I'll find where you live and I will hurt you.
save it for opinion time, bud.
I know. He's getting very touchy. I can't remember the guy's name, but the Irish madman and I, we were in Dublin, and I went to the statue of the singer from Thin Lizzy, and we got our picture taken with the guy. I'll see if I can dig that up and stick that in the Instagram page. What's that guy's name again? Bass player?
I'm not gonna tell you. You got to look it up.
Look it up. That's against the philosophy of the show. So
go figure.
Yeah. So Greg, what are we drinking?
What are we drinking?
Aside from anger.
Oh, yeah.
A cup full of rage.
Today I got some hazelnut coffee to go along with my It's a Conspiracy coffee mug, where you can find.
Available at oldmandesign.com.
Nice.
There you go. Yeah, hazelnut praline. It's not that good. It smells great. It tastes like coffee.
It
I
looks
was
good, tastes like crap.
Very, very upset that it just tasted like coffee. It smells amazing.
You smell amazing.
Charlie, what are you drinking?
Charlie, have you got one here? I got one ready to go, but if you...
I got one. You know
Okay,
what?
go ahead, man.
You got mad at me last time when I said I was
didn't get mad at
drinking
you. I was
Kirkland brand vodka, and you said get your shit sorted out. So today I am drinking from Annex Soda Saskatoon Lemonade, and it is a craft soda. Here's the can. Here it is. Right here.
Oh.
It is the kind of small batch lemonade that you'd find in the neighborhood stand. If you lived on a Saskatoon farm, that is, or were dreaming, it is a tasty treat, let me tell you.
I'll take two.
Man. Saskatoons are so good. I feel bad for people that haven't ever had Saskatoon berries. I'm just like, you gotta live your life.
Delicious. Andy,
They
how
really
about
are.
you?
I was in
Oh, here we
our
go.
province friend to the west.
He keeps flexing, huh?
Yeah, I know. It's just no big deal.
I can afford things like vacation.
Yeah. We went to I went to Arrowhead Brewing Company, which was in Invermere, which is right by Panorama. No big deal. Just man of the world. Anyways, I had this one here. I actually had a flight, which was delivered on just a very cool like plank, super awesome. And this Likeabull lager was great. A retooled version of this lager that was released a few years ago. It's back, but with a cleaner and crisper flavor. Very easy to drink. It was great, and the brewery itself was amazing. A lot of fun people playing there, and I'm like, man, this is awesome. Like, it felt like a super cool kind of hippie living room. And then on my way out, I noticed there was a poster, and Boots and the Hoots were playing there, in the next weekend. And I'm like, I already love this place, and I love those guys. Like, it was just made me happy. Yeah. And the one that I wanted to talk about also was they had another one of these Haskaps. I don't know which one of the one, but the lady's like, she's like, yeah, isn't that fun to say? And I'm like, that's what we've been talking about on the podcast, how much fun Haskap is to say. And she's like, the brewery's right there. She's like, do you want to try some Haskaps? I'm like, you has Haskaps? So she brought out a little bowl, and they looked like kind of like dried up blueberries. I tried one. It was bitter and horrible. It was disgusting. But I have now can say I has Haskap. So I was very, just
But
kind
as
of
soon
a
as
life.
you put it into something you can ferment and add sugar and wheat and other things too, it becomes delicious.
It does become delicious, and I think that's the case with like a lot of these things that are added to beers for flavoring, like when you have them by themselves. Yeah,
Except for hops. When you do an IPA, it just turns into crap.
Save it for opinion time.
yeah. Holy, Greg, you are on fire with the opinions today. You'll not besmirch hops in my company.
I was going to say that they are IPAs after all.
Yeah. Well, that's going to take us to ad number 1.
This episode of It's a Conspiracy is brought to you by Taproot Edmonton, which publishes curiosity-driven stories, topical newsletters, and locally focused podcasts, all in the service of informing Edmontonians about their community. Want to start your day informed? Check out The Pulse, Taproot's new daily news briefing. The Pulse tells you what you need to know about Edmonton every weekday morning. You'll get short, informative updates about what's happening in City Hall, plus coverage of business, tech, food, the arts, and more. You'll also get a little bit of whimsy from features such as A Moment in History, Chart of the Week, and the Friday Podcast Pick. And it's free. Sign up today at taprootedmonton.ca/pulse. That's taprootedmonton.ca/pulse.
So that's going to take us to subject numero 2, a moment of Greg with Greg.
Moments of Greg.
Sorry, that's the best I can do. If you guys can match that up to the actual song, that'd be great. Today we're going to talk about paradoxes or paradoxi. I don't know the plural of them.
That means 2 doxes.
Doxes. But I'm also at the end going to talk about my favorite paradox, which apparently was discovered last year. So, just for everybody to know what a paradox is, I do have 3 definitions, each of them getting simpler to explain. So if you don't understand the first one, by the third one, if you don't understand, I'm sorry, but you're just going to have to look it up yourself.
Sorry.
So paradox definition number 1, a seemingly absurd or self-contradictory statement or proposition that when investigated or explained may prove to be well-founded or true. Number 2, a statement or proposition that despite sound or apparently sound reasoning from acceptable premises leads to a conclusion that seems senseless, logically unacceptable, or self-contradictory. And the most basic English definition, a situation, person, or thing that combines contradictory features or qualities. And that really didn't even seem that much simpler than the first 2. So basically, a paradox is something that may claim to be true, but at the end of the paradox or explanation of it, basically makes the statement untrue. Some examples of paradoxes are catch-22, a situation in which someone is in need of something that can only be had by not being in need of it. So whenever you're looking for something and you're like, oh man, I found it in the last place that I was looking for it. You didn't really need it at that time because you had given up, but it was the last place you looked. You found it. It's very contradictory. An example is a soldier who wants to be declared insane to avoid combat is deemed not insane, those kind of things. Another example of a paradox is the grandfather paradox. This is an example of if someone travels back in time and kills their grandfather before the grandfather, I should say grandmother as well, is able to conceive one of the parents, well, then you just really had no reason to go back in time and kill anybody because you don't exist. But this brings me to my all-time new favorites, and I would say the most important paradox to the world, which was brought up last year during the summer. But this is how it goes. If you were to ask Rick Astley for his copy of the movie Up, and that is the movie Up from Pixar, which is owned by Disney, he cannot give it to you, as he will never give you up. However, in doing so, he lets you down, which he has claimed he will never do as well, thus creating the Astley paradox.
I read a paper on that.
Oh, wow. That is airtight. That's amazing. The Astley paradox.
Sorry, it's the best paradox I've heard. So unfortunately, you're never going to watch his copy of the movie, which may have an alternate ending. Who knows? May not even be the same movie, but he's not going to give it to you. So
broken promises.
This is the ultimate paradox. Sorry, this is the end of the world. Probably happened at this exact same date that this was put onto the internet, and we're all just in a matrix.
Alrighty, cheerful.
All right, you're welcome. Have a great day. See you later.
You guys are really swinging for the fences with this lighthearted subjects matters.
Just taking it, frothy, keeping it frothy, keeping it snappy. Snap. That's going to take us to subject number 3, the Vrill Society. Vril. Now, I know that sounds kind of like a medication, maybe to help you go to the bathroom. It also sort of sounds like a real solid name for a 90s punk band, I think. Vril. Have you two ever heard the classic story opener, "It was a dark and stormy night"? So that was first coined by Edward Bulwer Lytton. Wait a minute. Linnett. Phil Linnett. That's the guy's name from Thin Lizzy. Phil Linnett. Phil Linnett. That's the guy's name.
He's filling it.
It sounds like Phil Linnett. I know, but Phil Linnett is the guy from Thin Lizzy. And the Irish Madman and I, we got our picture taken at his statue in, yeah. All right. Okay. Sorry. That was first coined
when the boys were back in town.
Edward Bulwer Lytton.
They were about to make a jailbreak.
He was a Victorian era writer. In 1870, he published the thrilling, saucy science fiction romp, "The Power of the Coming Race," in which an underground army of troll angels use a secret serum called Vril to take over the planet. These subterranean troll angels, called Vrilia, are telepathic creatures who stumble onto the surface one day and decide to use their Professor X powers to get rid of humanity in the name of Vril. Now, people loved this book, and it created a huge movement, obviously entirely based in science, and research at the time was clear that the Earth was indeed hollow and filled with aliens. These aliens had once lived on the surface, maybe in Atlantis, where they were punished by a superior force and moved underground, or perhaps they went underground when the Great Flood from the Old Testament happened, or they were lava monsters who slaved away at giant stoves in the Earth's core, forging strange devices that maybe somebody tried to steal a couple years later. Either way, these monsters living under the Earth loved Vril and all of its life-giving powers. Fast forward to 1935, there was a German rocket scientist. This name is a bit of a disappointing. Okay, so 1935, German rocket scientist Willy Ley. I was expecting like a German rocket scientist name, not Willy Ley.
Nice and simple.
Real simple. He showed a bit of foresight in 35, and he fled to the U.S. as he saw the direction that Germany was taking. His research was gladly embraced, and he began publishing a number of articles on engines, aviation, rockets, science, medicine, all kinds of stuff. And aerodynamics. And he started talking about Vril. And everybody was like, what the hell are you talking about, man? And he's like, well, there's a secret group called, now here's where this will satisfy your need for German names, Wahrheitsgesellschaft, or the Society for Truth. Wahrheitsgesellschaft was a group in Germany that was tasked with finding the actual Morlock Vrillias, because they're real and they're working down there. He claimed that they had perfected a working perpetual motion machine. A couple years later, in the 1960s, a book titled, and this is going to harken back to Greg's love of Magic the Gathering, a book titled Morning of the Magicians, which has got to be the lamest title for a book I've ever heard.
Oh man, that's a card where it's like you tap one mana and play two, and then I have no idea.
Oh, Morning of the Magicians was published, and the claim was made that German scientists had indeed contacted the Vrillia, and that the Society for Truth was in fact the precursor to something called the Thule Society and the leading branch of the Nazi Party.
I thought it was pronounced Tool.
Tool Society? I don't know.
Thule.
Thule. Is it pronounced Tool?
Tool.
I'm always working on my pronunciation. Yeah, that's yep. They claim this is how the Nazis were able to create their Vril-powered flying saucer, the V7, which allegedly made a flight into Prague in 1945. This saucer, like most of the more advanced technology, was bundled up at the end of World War II and kept in their secret base in Antarctica. The book also claims that the Nazi leaders and scientists that escaped Antarctica in their saucer were able to land on the moon in 1947, and since then they've been slowly establishing a moon colony there.
Oh, that's where Hitler's brain is, on the moon.
It's on the moon, in the moon colony.
The dark side of the moon.
Supporters of this theory claim that the Wahrheitsgesellschaft are up there right now preparing for the Fourth Reich, or they're pulling the strings on any number of world events, including COVID-19 and everything. This is also the plot for Iron Sky, which is a great movie. And it may sound familiar to Wolfenstein fans. If you guys are into Wolfenstein, that's a fun game. And one of them is go to the moon. Gaming. Yeah.
Sign 3D, baby.
Oh, man. So the Vrill Society live on the moon and control everything. That's going to take us to ad number 2.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth Bonkink.
I'm Andrew Paul.
And we're the hosts of the Well Endowed Podcast.
The Well Endowed Podcast is produced by Edmonton Community Foundation, or ECF as we call it.
ECF provides grants to charities through the endowment funds we create and manage with our donors.
Hence the title of our show, The Well Endowed Podcast.
Every month, we bring you a collection of stories and interviews with fascinating guests who are working to make Edmonton a strong, vibrant city to live in.
Through these stories, we look at the space where endowments intersect with your communities.
So if you're interested in the people and issues impacting your community, check out thewellendowedpodcast.com.
Opinion time. Hey, everybody, it's opinion time.
All right, then, Mr. Scream. What was our first theory? Oh.
You know what?
It involved a unscrupulous
right.
doctor.
The boys are back in town. The smallpox vaccine.
The smallpox vaccine.
I had to get there. I had to reverse engineer it through my jokes.
Andrew, our moment of Gorgeous Greg was the ASTLEY paradox. And what is a paradox? And what is the plural of paradox? Paradium? Perineum?
Paradoxes?
Paradoxes. Yeah. So that's good times. Is Terminator a paradox?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Because he goes back into the past to change the thing that makes him Terminator.
But then they wouldn't have...
No.
Yeah.
But okay, see, the first one is self-fulfilling because she survives and
That's
she
true.
has John Connor, and he is supposed to be the leader. And so is the second one because he still survives.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
And then you've got some ones that go into like weird time tangents that don't actually exist, and I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, I know. And the same actor never. I don't think anybody ever came back and played John Connor more than once. Yeah. And then Greg, what was our third?
What was our third?
What was it?
Because you don't remember.
You don't remember what it was?
I'm still talking about Terminator.
He's too angry about Terminator 3. Do you remember what the third theory was?
I don't remember.
It
I'm
was
still upset about Terminator 3.
Vril.
Really?
It was the Vrill Society and the Wahrheitsgesellschaft
and the Tool Society.
and the Tool Society. Yeah.
The moon Nazis.
So, I've never really heard of the Tool Society before. Greg, do you want to go ahead and tell us all about it, or are you familiar with the Vrill Society? Or
I'm a little
Nazis
bit
on the Moon?
familiarized with the Tool Society is mentioned in the Hellboy comics, which is where Gregory Rasputin becomes into play, and it has a lot to do with Vril and a lot of the afterlife and all those other things that have to do with the shit that Tool Society has to do with. Other than that, I really have nothing. It was mentioned in a comic book and
Documentary picture books.
I think.
Yeah. So Vril,
documentary picture books.
Vril is called out in the Hellboy comics.
Yep.
Cool, man. Actually,
that makes perfect sense to me.
That makes absolutely perfect sense. Yeah, totally. And Hellboy.
It's got a lot to do with like Nazis and like the occult and and all those dark sciences.
Mm-hmm.
Dark
My
arts,
opinion.
as they would say in Harry Potter.
My opinion is that I love the Hellboy series.
Totally. Yeah. It was real good.
See, Greg, this is where you bring opinions to the table.
Yeah, that's what it took me a while. It was like I had an opinion about the third thing, but so wrapped up in this other thing.
Yeah, I don't know, man. The Vril thing for me, I think it's funny that there's kind of a constant element of conspiracy theories in general for the past 60, 70 years have been the relationship between Nazis and the moon. Yeah, and I know there's reasons why, like there's a lot of the stuff that was the V1 rockets were used in the space program in the States and all that kind of stuff. But it is, there's constantly like, oh, they've got a base up there. Oh, they've got, you know, like it's odd. The Hellboy connection.
If they did,
now I'm
there's
just
nothing
thinking
we
about,
can do about it.
just thinking about Hellboy 2 just fills me with glee. That's the best one. And Ron Perlman is just so great. So, Charlie, what do you think about vaccines? You seem to have some opinions that you were ready to slam down on the table.
I think the biggest thing was I was just waiting to make the boys are back in town joke.
So when the doctor had grabbed the boy and injected him with cowpox, yeah.
Well, I mean, it's absolutely super sketchy that he did that to just like a random kid. But I was thinking, but you know, at least it worked. At least he cured him.
He's real lucky it did.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah. It's not necessarily an excusable, you know, conclusion, but
to be honest, we don't really know how many boys he went through to cure that one.
Ooh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, either way, if he had injected that kid and that kid died, like that's, I think they call that murder. You know,
Yeah.
don't they? They're like, I'm going to give you a needle full of, or scrape some pustules into your cut. You know?
That sounds like a witchcraft kind of thing to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but no more witchy than, hey, you know what I'm going to do this evening? I'm going to go dry out some cow pus and snort it.
Yeah.
Fair enough, yeah.
It would have seemed like witchcraft at the time, like, oh hey, let's take off the scabs of this thing and snort it up our nose, and then I'll take an onion and put it in my sock and I'll sleep under the full moon. But like time and time again, these like sort of tribal medications, although they don't really understand the science entirely behind them, you know, helping our immune system like create a memory, basically. Like they wouldn't have understood it on that point.
Sure. I don't know why it works, but it works. So
yeah, and I'm just like, man, that's fascinating, and how much knowledge would have been lost as these tribes were like destroyed. And you know, yeah, fascinating thing, because you know, honestly, the smallpox was going for a really, really long time, and it's interesting that people were kind of picking up on the cowpox thing, but nobody really dissected it in a scientific way. Yeah. So let's inject ourselves with this disease and see if it helps us get this other disease. That's an interesting thing. I think it's very creative, but it's extremely ethically
risque.
Like, he is lucky that worked. Like,
yeah.
Man.
Saying that though, Andrew, you basically just said is like you were surprised nobody had like discovered a way to be like, how do we test this scientifically? They didn't have that scientific method at that time, I don't think.
Well, whether or not you have the scientific method, the idea of like experimenting nowadays, who knows? Honestly, like I hate to think about it, but nowadays it's hard to say. Of all the medications and stuff that we have, has everything been achieved in ethical ways? Like,
most definitely not.
Yeah. So, and we take advantage of it. We don't really want to think about it, but even things like chemotherapy and stuff like that, like when you think about what they're doing, it's like, this was tested and proved to work. Did you guys test this on people? Like, is this a result of like horrible experiments from like, you know, it's.
I would probably say most definitely. That's, you know, they still, I don't want to say they still do that today, but at least you have to sign off on it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, because I think we have new sort of standards, and I get basic respect for life and individuals now that maybe wasn't always given before, and I don't know, but it did work, and I know it would have been hard on those boys being shipped all over the planet, but that is a very creative and fascinating way of spreading the vaccine to like the Spanish colonies, like just taking these boys who were kind of vessels of cowpox and like spreading it amongst the population. And that's really like Jenner came up with the idea, but King Charles being like coming up with this concept of sharing it with the colonies, like that's really, they took that idea and they put it on the next level. And so there was a lot of people responsible for the saving of hundreds of millions of people.
One thing that I wanted to say on this is, Andrew, you actually brought up like one of my the name of one of my favorite books by Jared Diamond is Guns, Germs, and Steel, and it's basically the birth of civilizations in different parts of the earth and how they came to be. And basically his thought on it is that every civilization, no matter how small or large, was basically brought on by like, okay, we need to defend ourselves. As soon as we recognize that we're a community, when we become a community, everybody is pretty much, you know, exposed to the same thing come the germs, and Steel being the people who come later who are way more advanced than us, that are able to take over, and all of a sudden we have more guns, more germs, and more steel. You know, it's a really long book and it's really boring, but if you're into that type of thing, I would definitely recommend it. Jared Diamond is the author, by the way.
Well, alrighty then, Moonbeams. Like the one guy from the Planeteers, we have the power of heart, and that makes us all winners. We will be back with episode 3 very soon, but if you're needing a chuckle fix in the meantime, then you can check out all of our past casts and social media stuff at itsaconspiracypodcast.com. Thank you so much for swinging by, and we sure do hope to see you again real soon. So take care.
Bye.
See you later.
All right.
Kaboom.
That was a long one.
These are both long ones. I got so much.